So, good day to each and everyone. We are the Group D, and the members of the Group 3 are first, Kihana Gisrael, Anzano Queni, Villagonzano Kyle, Amdero Geraldine, Apostle Jason, Lawas May, Makilan Shane Angela, and Ebale Tricia. Now to start off, the main topic for this discussion is the components of dutiable taxes under the Republic Act 10863 and the relatedness of this topic towards the CMO 16-2010. Title 7 of the Republic Act 10863, Import Duty and Tax, Chapter 1, Basis of Valuation. Now in Section 700, Sequential Application of Valuation Methods, imported goods shall be valued in accordance with the provision of Section 701 of this Act whenever the conditions prescribed therein are fulfilled. It is where the customs value cannot be determined under the provision of Section 701 of this Act, it is to be determined by the proceeding sequentially through the succeeding section, hereof to the first such section under which the customs value can determine, except as provided in Section 704 of this Act. It is only when the customs value cannot be determined under the provision of a particular section that the provisions of the next section in the sequence can be used. Now what this means is, under this chapter of basis of evaluation, you can put value on a certain goods basing on the sections in this chapter. So for example, a certain goods certain goods have been imported here in the Philippines, and ang ilahang prescribed na conditions is na meet in Section 701, then the conditions shall be applied under 701. But if dili siya makater sa 701 nga section, then the preceding sections will be the one to cater. So we'll explain it later later in this video discussion, so please stand by. Now, here is another point of this discussion. If the importer does not request that the order of Section 704 and 705 of this Act be reversed, the normal order of the sequence is to be followed. If the importer so requests, but is impossible to determine the customs value under Section 705 of this Act, the customs value shall be determined under Section 704. But when the customs value cannot be determined under 701 to 705, it may be determined under Section 706 of this Act. So, as what akong gisulti ganina guys, nga if ever gani, dili ang kani siya, mahitabo ni siya if ang importer dili siya ma-request nga ibali ang sequence. Nga dili maguna ang 4. So, if ilahang i-approve nga maguna ang 5 sa 4, then there are a lot of things nga pwede ma-approve. But if ilahagya pong ipapadayon nga ang 704 may maguna compared sa 705, there's a chance nga if dili gyapon makater sa 704, Section 704 ang customs value, then adto gyapon siya mapunta sa 705. And if ever gani dili gyapon siya makater sa Section 705, ang customs value sa usa ka imported goods kay i-determine na siya sa preceding section, which is 706. It goes the same from different cargoes or imported goods. If dili siya makater sa Section 1, then adto ipaka-adip ang iyang dutiable value or ang customs value is forward to the sequence Section 702. If dili gyapon makater, then so on and so forth hantod maabot sila sa 706. So to continue, in the CMO 16-2010, as what I've said kanina nga related na sila duha, it is said that the primary method in determining the dutiable value of imported goods shall be method 1, which is called the transaction method. It is whenever the conditions of prescribed for goods and its use are fulfilled. So, however, if the dutiable value cannot be determined with the use of the method of the following valuation, other sequential order shall be applied. So, mato kung ganyan niyo guys, if dili gyud makater ni transaction value or the transaction value which is method 1, ipasa na siya nga sa method 2, which is the transaction value of identical goods. If dili gyapon siya ma-cater sa method 2, it will proceed to method 3 and so on and so forth until maabot sila to sa method 6, which is the fallback value. Now, these different kinds of methods will be discussed by my fellow groupmates right in this video discussion. So please stay put and listen. Please. Now, here is another circumstance. However, at the request of the importer, the order of application of methods 4 and 5 may be reversed kato sa giingon sa Republic Act 10863, in which asa ilang gibaylo ang 5 and method 4. Provided that the Commissioner of Customs agrees for such request, taking into consideration that the reversal of the sequential order will not give the rise to real difficulties for the Bureau of Customs in determining the dutiable value under Method 5. Para makaiba mo ani guys kung unsa nila ang gitakol, i-discuss rin siya sa ko ang fellow groupmates kung unsa si Method 4 and Method 5, and right on that discussion makahibata kung nganong okay ra nga or need og approval ang pagbaylo ni Method 4 ug ni Method 5. Since it is said that it is a sequential order or order nga mag-start yun siya sa Method 1 hangtod maabot siya sa Method 6. Now, if the importer does not request that the order of Method 4 and Method 5 be reversed, the normal order of the sequence shall be followed. If the importer does not do so request, but it then proves impossible to determine the dutiable value under the provisions of Method 5, the dutiable value shall be determined under the provisions of the Method 4, if it can be so determined. Now, where the dutiable value cannot be determined under provisions of Method 1 to 5, it shall be determined under the provision of Method 6. So, mo to siya guys. If dili gani siya makater sa provision sa Method 1 to Method 5, at adto gyud siya kinalasan sa Method 6, which is the fallback value. Now, it is where my topic ends. Let's go to the next reporter, which is Kyle, and they'll be discussing the Method 1 or the Section 701.
Section 701, Transactions Value System or the Method 1. The transactions value shall be the price actually paid or payable for the goods being sold for exports to the Philippines, adjusted in accordance with the provisions of these sections, provided that there are no restrictions as to the disposition or use of the goods by the buyer other than restrictions which are imposed or required by law or by Philippines authorities, limit the geographical area in which the goods may be resold, or do not substantially affect the value of the goods. The sale or price is not subject to some condition or consideration for which a value cannot be determined with respect to the goods being valued, and the buyer and the seller are not related, or where the buyer and the seller are related, that the transaction's value is acceptable for customs purposes under the provisions hereof. Person shall be deemed related only if they are officer or directors of one another business, they are legally recognized partners in business, there exists an employer-employee relationship between them, any persons directly or indirectly owns, control, or hold 5% or more of the outstanding voting stocks or share of both seller and buyer. One of them directly or indirectly controls the other. Both of them are directly or indirectly controlled by a third person. Together they are directly or indirectly controlled by a third person, or they are members of the same family, including those related by affinity or consanguinity up to the fourth civil degree. Persons who are associated in business with one another in that one is the sole agent, sole distributor, or sole concessionaire, any of the 8 cases cited in the preceding paragraph. In a sale between related persons, the transaction's value shall be accepted as basis for customs violation whenever the importers demonstrate that such a value closely approximate one of the following occurring at or about the same time: the transaction's value in sales to unrelated buyer of identical or similar goods for exports to the same country of importation; the customs value of identical or similar goods as determined under the provisions of Section 704 or Section 075 of this Act, or determining the transaction's value. The following shall be added to the price actually paid or payable for the imported goods, to the extent that they are incurred by the buyer but are not included in the price actually paid or payable for the imported goods: commissions and brokerage fees except buying commissions, cost of containers, cost of packaging, whether for labor or materials, Value a portion as appropriate of the following goods and services. An amount of royalties and license fees related to goods being valued that the buyer must pay either directly or indirectly as conditions of sale of the goods to the buyer. Value of any part of the proceeds of any subsequent resale, disposal, or use of the imported goods that accrues directly or indirectly to the seller. Cost of transport of the imported goods from the port of exportation to the port of entry in the Philippines. Loading, unloading, and handling charges associated with transport of the imported goods from the country of exportation to the port of entry in the Philippines. And cost of insurance. All additions to the price actually paid or payable shall be made only in the basis of objectives and quantifiable data.
Everyone, I am Geraldine Noblero, so I am the third reporter for the section 702, transaction value of identical goods method 2. So where the dutiable value cannot be determined under method 1, the dutiable value should be the transaction value of identical goods sold for export to the Philippines and exported at or about the same time as the good of being value. So purposes of this section, identical goods refers to goods which are the same in all respects, including physical characteristics, quality, and reputation. So minor differences in appearances shall not preclude goods of otherwise conforming to definition from being regarded as identical. So if in applying this section, more than one transaction value of identical goods are found, the lowest value should be used to determine the customs of value.
Section 703, or transaction value of similar goods, where method 3, where the dutiable value cannot be determined under the preceding method. The dutiable value shall be transaction value of similar goods sold for export to the Philippines and exported at about the same time as the goods being valued. For purposes of this section, similar goods refers to goods which, although not alike in all respect, have like characteristic and similar components materials which enable them to perform the same functions and to be commercially interchangeable. The quality of the goods, its reputation, and the existence of a trademark shall be among the factors to be considered in determining whether the goods are similar. If, in applying this section, more than one transaction value of identical goods are found, the lowest such value shall be used to determine the customs values. So this means that the preceding or the previous method cannot determine the exact dutiable value of a goods, where this also states that the dutiable value shall be transaction value of similar goods, where transaction value of the imported goods is based on the price actually paid or payable for those goods when sold. Therefore, there must be a sale for export to the Philippines as one of the conditions for the application of a method 1 constitutes a commercial operation, and in this method, the lowest or transaction value of those similar goods are the lowest value shall be used to determine the customs value.
Hi, good day. I am Jennifer Lanzano, and this time let me share my understanding about the topic that assigned to me. So, let's start. Method 4 is entitled the deductive value. By this method, the vegetable value is established using the approach based on sales of the items being valued in the Philippines, or sales of comparable or similar imported goods, less certain specified expenditures resulting from the importation and sale of the commodities. So here are the following requirements that must be meet sales for sales in the Philippines. The first statement, it means that imported products or identical or comparable imported items were sold in the Philippines in the same condition as when they were imported. Then next, sales of the imported items that being evaluated or identical or comparable imported products occurred at or near the time the goods being valued were imported The price at or near the time of importation of the items being valued is refers to the 45-day period preceding and following the importation of the goods being valued. And the third requirement is that the customer must be unrelated to the importer from whom he purchases such products, and last, the purchaser in the Philippines must not have provided any kind of assistance. Assistance either directly or indirectly. Along with also with the Section 704 of Republic Act number 10863, entitled An Act Modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration, it also indicated there that where the debitable value cannot be found using the previous technique, the debitable value shall be the deductive value, unless otherwise doubted requested by the importer in accordance with the Section 700. So the deductive value shall be based on the unit price at which the imported goods are identical or similar imported goods are sold in the Philippines, and in the same condition as when imported, in greatest aggregate quantity, at or near the time of the importation of the goods being valued, to persons who are not related to the persons from whom they buy such goods. Next slide, let's talk about here the deductive value that is calculated or determined by making a deduction from the established price per unit. So the following elements are: commissions are often received on a per unit basis in connection in sales of items of the same class or sort in the Philippines. That was the first statement. That was my understanding in the first statement. And second one, in the Philippines, additions are often made in conjunction with sales, profit, and general costs for commodities of the same class or sort. The third is that within the Philippines, typical transportation, insurance, and associated expenditures. And last one is the customs charges and other national taxes levied in the Philippines as a result of items importation and sale. As also mentioned in the section 704, either the commission typically paid or agreed to be paid, or the adjustments typically made for profit and general expenditures in connection with sales of imported products of the same class or sort in such nation. Then the normal transportation and insurance charges as well as any additional expenditures incurred within the Philippines, and where applicable the cost of transporting imported goods from the port of exportation to the port of entry in the Philippines, loading, unloading, and handling charges associated with the transporting imported goods for the country of exportation to the port of entry in the Philippines, and insurance, and and customs charges in other national taxes levied in the Philippines as a result of the product's importation or sales.
So, good day everyone. I am Shane Angela Makilan. So, I'm going to tackle about the section 705 of Title 7, the Import Duty and Tax, Chapter 1, Basis of Valuation. So, which is the computed value. So, computed value in the method 5, where the dutiable value cannot be determined under the preceding method. So, the dutiable value shall be computed value of the sum of. So, kaning computed value kay dili mahimo ang suitable value nga ma-determinar ubos sa mga nag-una nga pamaagi. So ang suitable value ang magkalkulado nga value sa kaning mga sumusunod. So 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 first kay ang the cost or the value of materials and fabrications or other processing employed in producing the imported goods. So means ang gasto or ang mga value sa mga materials o mga fabrication o uban pa nga mga gipang proseso nga kanang nga nagtrabaho sa paghimo ani sa imported nga mga butang. So next is the amount for profit and general expenses equal to that usually reflected in in the sale of goods of the same of the same class of the same class or kind as the goods being valued, which are producers producers in the country of exportation for export to the export for the to the Philippines. So means kanang ang mga kantidad para sa mga ginansya o mga kinatabukang gasto nga nagatumbas sa mga kasagaran nga mga gipakita sa pagbaligya sa mga butang. So kaniya mga samang klase o mga matang sa mga butang nga gipabilihan nga kanang himo sa mga producer nga kanang nasud sa exportation para ipa-export sa Pilipinas. And the next is the freight insurance fees and other transportation expenses for the importation of the goods. So mga minsan ni kay ang kargamento o mga bayronon sa mga insurance o guban pang mga gigastuan sa transportasyon para sa mga importasyon nga mga butang. So at the fourth one say kay any assist if its value is not included under the paragraph 1 hereof. And the last one is the cost of containers and packing. So if their values are not included under the paragraph 1 kay so the Bureau shall not require or compel any person not residing in the Philippines to produce for examination, or to allow access to any account or other record for the purpose of determining a computed value. So however, information supplied by the producer of the goods for the purposes of determining the customs value may be verified in another country. So with the agreement of the producer and provided that said producer will give sufficient advance notice to the government of the country. So in question and that the latter does not object to the investigation. So that's it. Next reporter, please.
Good day, everybody. I am Tishaan M. Ibali, and let's go on to the method 6, or what we call the fallback value. If the dutiable value cannot be determined under those preceding methods described above, it shall be determined by using other methods or reasonable means on the basis of data available in the Philippines. So the importer shall be informed in writing of a dutiable value determined under the method 6 if it so asks for request. No dutiable value shall be determined under the method 6 on the basis of first, the selling price in the Philippines or the goods produced in the Philippines. Second, a system that provides for acceptance for customs purposes of the higher of two alternative values. The price of goods in the domestic market of the country of exportation, the cost of production other than computed values that have been determined for identical or similar goods in accordance with Method 5 hereof, the price of goods for export to a country other than the Philippines, minimum customs values, or the arbitrary or fictitious values. That's all. Thank you.
Windilyn May Lawas, the reporter of Section 707, Ascertainment of the accuracy of the declared value. Nothing in this section shall be construed as restricting or calling into question the right of the Bureau to ascertain the truth or accuracy of any statement, document, or declaration presented for customs valuation purposes. So when a declaration has been presented, and when the Bureau has reason to doubt the truth or accuracy of the particulars or of documents produced in support of such declaration, it may ask the importer to provide further explanation, including documents or other evidence, that the declared value represents the total amount actually paid or payable for the imported goods, adjusted in accordance with the provisions of Section 701 of this Act. If in the course of determining the dutiable value of imported goods, it becomes necessary to delay the final determination of such dutiable value, the importer shall nevertheless be able to secure the release of the imported goods upon posting of sufficient security in an amount equivalent to the duties and taxes in dispute, condition on the payment of additional duties and taxes, if any, as may be determined, provided that the prohibited goods shall not be released under any circumstance. If, after receiving further information, or in the absence of response, the Bureau still has reasonable doubts on the truth or accuracy of the declared value, it may deem that the custom value of the imported goods cannot be determined under Method 1, with prejudice to an importer's right to appeal pursuant to Section 1104 of this Act. Before taking a final decision, the district collector shall communicate to the importer, in writing if requested, the grounds for doubting the truth or accuracy, the particulars or documents produced, and give the importer a reasonable opportunity to respond. So when a final decision is made, the Bureau shall communicate its decision and the grounds therefore in writing.